Joni Mitchell, it's 20 years ago since you made your first album, and you've come such a long way from there, you know, through all kinds of music. And this last album seems to be a mixture of both jazz and folk and rock and everything you've been through. Is that how you feel it?
Yeah, I feel at this point like from time to time the river of my music needed the introduction of new tributaries, you know. And this album in particular, I guess, is a kind of a potpourri of styles. It gets very folky on the last track, and there's a lot of continuing synthesizer experiment. I guess you would say it's a synopsis, a roundup of different styles.
And you've chosen to work with Peter Gabriel. How did that come about?
Well, at the beginning of the project, before I began to record, my husband was working in the southwest of England with Ben Orr. He was producing Ben Orr's record. And news got out that he was in the neighborhood, and Peter sent for him to play bass on his album. And when I arrived, I had to use this facility. And while I was there, he, of course, stuck his head in to see how I was doing from time to time. And so I said, how would you like to sing on this song? So this is how it came about, just by accident, really, naturally.
I'm gonna take your special case.
The idea came to me when he began to sing. He studied my phrasing, and the timbre of his voice in that particular register was not typical of Peter. So I remembered the Song of Solomon in the Bible, where something has either happened in the translation or it was written in a way that you can't tell what gender it is, that it keeps undulating between a man's point of view and a woman's point of view. So when it came to the editing of where his vocal and my vocal would be, I changed from my voice to his sometimes in the middle of a word, you know. I think it's kind of nice that way. It becomes then like the inner communal thoughts of a couple instead of boy singing to girl, girl singing to boy, you know.
Yeah. Lyrically, you've also been very, very personal from time to time, almost painfully so. Has that been difficult for you to expose yourself so directly in your lyrics?
No, I've always felt that human nature is human nature, and that the human experience, if well depicted, in you know, that it was worth the sacrifice. You know, people had the option then to either, nothing that I said about myself was that specifically me. I mean, I think most people have felt those things that I exposed about myself. So, but they had the option in listening to say, oh, that's how Joni feels, or I feel that way too.
Since it's 20 years ago, 1968 these days, and it's been a lot of celebrating and a lot of myths going on about that time. How do you think about that time now, musically, when you look back?
The 60s?
Yeah.
What aspect of it? Gee, that's a big question.
I know, but I think the area around 68, 69, when it was all the big folk festivals, and it seems to me that a lot of people have a lot of romantic notions about what that was really like.
Well, it was colorful, you know. The manner of dress was very savage and tribal, and these gatherings had an air of pageantry about them. They look very strange now if you look back on them. People with shaved heads and colors painted all over their faces. There was a story told to me at one time about, it was an Indian story. I don't know whether it's truth or fiction, but I always liked it, and it served well as an explanation for the hippie phenomenon in America. And that was at the end of some battle, a chief raised up on the battlefield in his death throes on one elbow and seeing his slaughtered young, cursed the white soldiers departing and said, you know, may the souls of our dead come back in your generations to haunt you. And so the very Indian emulating aspect of the hippie culture, you know, the savage paint and the long hair and the bandanas around the head and the love of nature and all of that. I always wondered if that wasn't kind of a fulfillment of prophecy.
At that time, there were lots of stories about you being very vulnerable when you were on stage, that you'd break into tears during a concert. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I was the sacrificial folkie, in a way. I would be presented at these large rock festivals, standing in front of somebody else's mountain of amps. My audience was small and devoted, and frequently they would push forward. I'm thinking in particular of one occasion. I could see, because I'm at an elevation, people coming from here and here and here, trying to get closer. Mm-hmm. They created a commotion in the audience, which brought the cops out along the edge of the stage. All the time I'm singing very, very intimate. It's not like I have a band to face off and like party with. I'm drawing emotions up from my insides in the face of chaos. So this happened to me on more than one occasion, and you know, either I would burst into tears or run. Yeah, this is true.
Was it a tough time?
Well, not. These were tough moments, but it wasn't so much of a tough time. I just never fared well in big festivals. It wasn't. My work was too intimate. Mm. Imagine yourself trying to carry on a conversation. You're speaking. I mean, here you are on your podium. Supposedly you have something to say, and you're looking out frequently at pandemonium. Mm-hmm. It becomes absurd, you know. And the animal has adrenaline given to it to fight or to flee, and you have seconds to assess it. And if you don't do either one, if you neither get bigger than life or run, you get kinetic. Mm-hmm. Your whole body starts to go into arrest and trembling, you know. So I usually assessed it and said, no, I'm not big enough to stand, so I would take off.
People have had a lot of emotions about what you've been doing, like when you did the Mingus album. There were lots of talk, and now it's just going into jazz, and people were very angry and felt very strongly about it. Why do you think that is?
Well, people were afraid of jazz, I think, as people are afraid of things they don't understand. In the rock community, I know my peer group was afraid of my playing with jazz musicians. They took it as a kind of a personal betrayal. They used to ridicule me for it, and some of them felt that I had pretensions to something that I wasn't. But, you know, it's typecasting, really. I mean, when I was a kid in my teens, I loved to dance. You know, I was a rock and roll, mindless, happy-go-lucky dancing type. So you can imagine what that community of friends thought of me when suddenly I'm a folkie and I'm singing these like intimate little, they'd say, what happened to her? But the people who met me when I was singing like that, then when I went into jazz, they couldn't relate. So, I mean, if you're going to let people rule your life, you'll never come to your full development.
Has the jazz period, has that changed the way that you see rock today?
The way I see rock today? Well, I like rock and roll better than rock. Mm-hmm. The roll of it is, like, rock and roll to me is the push beat. Mm-hmm. And rock is like, you know, the swing, the absence of that joyous spirit, which died in the 60s, I miss. Like, I like boogie-woogie, I like rock and roll, I like some rock, but rock is very vertical and very white, and the white history of drumming is martial. And the 60s were a very war-oriented people. The singers had anxiety on their face, and the drum was white militant, you know. I like that period of rock and roll's history probably the least.